I will admit, I haven't seen a whole lot of ITX PC cases in my lifetime yet, but today's HYTE Revolt 3 certainly seems very nice for sure and seems to be doing a lot of things right. Not only does it look great and is fairly compact, but it's also amazingly functional, even coming with a carrying handle. You won't believe what I've managed to cram into this tiny case. But before that, I'd quickly like to mention that the Revolt 3 can be had both in either black or white, as well as with or without a pre-installed power supply. That does directly affect pricing, of course. Without any PSU, you're shelling out about $130 right now for this beauty. The power supply does come with a hefty premium, catapulting the pricing all the way up to roughly $250, which is quite the amount of money, sure. But those that have dealt with SFX PSUs in past know very well that those aren't exactly cheap given their size. I don't happen to possess such a smaller form factor power supply, which is why I'm even more excited to present you the version with such a PSU already included. The Revolt 3 comes with lots of surprises, and what I can already tell you right off the bat is that installing certain components into this thing was a very tight fit. You definitely have to pay some attention to certain aspects of this case, so you'll probably find out whether or not this is the right ITX case for you. As a matter of fact, as far as to what comes included, there's more than your average case out there. We are talking a power cord, a 3.5mm headset adapter, screws and general mounting stuff, as well as a short manual. Oh, and only a few of you will probably be aware of the brand HYTE. HYTE basically is a brand by iBuyPower, a brand that is known to build and sell pre-assembled PCs. I guess iBuyPower wanted to distance themselves a little bit, hence the new brand HYTE for their original design, such as cases. That's my wild theory at least. First of all, hats off for the very good build quality out of aluminum, steel, and only very little plastic. We're talking of real premium feeling here. All side panels are out of metal and can easily be taken off and be put back on by hand all toollessly. The only exception being the front and top cover that are held in place by screws. What I really appreciate is the fact that no matter which side you rotate this case to, the internal components, unlike with many other mini ITX cases, will not suffocate because there's mesh everywhere. The Revolt 3 only supports mini ITX motherboards, hardly a surprise, but given its small volume, can fit a lot of hardware. I have to bow down for that fact alone. Now what about dust filters? If you take off the rear cover on that panel, you'll spot a removable dust filter on the whole surface. Now if you take off the left side panel, you'll experience the exact same thing. So it only makes sense that we can expect the same to apply to the right side. The front cover, however, only comes off by loosening 8 screws in total. Behind that cover, you'll discover a removable mesh cover. According to the manufacturer, graphics cards with a length of up to 335mm will fit in here, but should you have the wish to install an even longer GPU, there's an emergency solution reserved too. I mean, it's not exactly pretty, but certainly very functional. You loosen 4 screws and take off the top cover, so the booty of one's graphics card can stick out through that cutout at the top. Of course, a lot of you will be asking the following question. How tall can a CPU cooler, or rather air cooler, be in this Revolt 3? The answer, 140mm at max. But we aren't being forced into using just lame low-profile air coolers in here, but instead are free to go for liquid cooling for a proper workstation or gaming machine. By loosening a few screws, you're allowing the radiator/fan bracket to open like a door, allowing for much easier installation. You can mount up to a 240 or 280mm radiator onto that bracket, although with a max thickness being 35mm. This of course also means that instead of a radiator, you could go for 2 pieces of either 120 or 140mm fans. But even at the top you could mount up to a single 80mm fan, but the thickness can't exceed 15mm. However, let's get back to inspecting the outer shell real quick again. The carrying handle, presumably out of aluminum, can be put into position or you let it snap back into place. That handle is supposed to be able to carry 14 kilograms at max. Furthermore, on both the left and right side, you can extend those headphone/headset holders. Worth noting is the I/O of this Revolt 3. Onboard is a sought-after USB Type-C port, even though it's merely an extension of one's motherboard's rear I/O port. With that said, it's fairly hard to reach the motherboard's I/O, but a nice side effect being a very tidy, organized setup since all the cables are underneath the case. Needless to say, I couldn't stop myself from taking a closer peek at the pre-installed power supply, and I'll have to say, in terms of its dimensions, it's an extremely tight fit. Well, we are in fact dealing with a bit of a longer unit within the realm of that form factor, SFXL, by the in-house brand iBuyPower, with a rated output power of 700 watts and an efficiency of 80 plus gold, albeit that's not an official certification by any means. Nonetheless, the PSU luckily doesn't seem to belong into the garbage can. At this point, I'd like to point out that you should be very cautious when opening up power supplies. Doing so can be life-threatening in some instances. But this isn't supposed to be a PSU review by any means. The platform does appear very tidy and appears to come equipped with decent capacitors by Japanese brands. The fan noise is very low, barely audible, especially with the rest of the system up and running. Very well, as far as storage is concerned, a single 3.5-inch hard drive can slide in right next to the PSU and be screwed into place. SSDs or 2.5-inch drives you can attach to the case's right wall. Now, what can I say about the actual installation process of my test system into the case and what kind of components are going to fit at the end of the day? Admittedly, while building into the case went all according to plan, I'm not going to lie, it was a challenge and a bit of a hassle. I mean, I could have gone the easy route by choosing to install an air cooler, but I wanted to push that case to its limits, therefore decided to install a 240mm AIO liquid cooler. It did fit, but barely. A very, very tight fit is the best term to describe it. Especially with longer tubing, it becomes very hard to manage since you have to avoid kinks in the tubing at all cost. But I did it. The Revolt 3 is capable of housing my 240mm AIO. As a matter of fact, this was the hardest part by far in the assembly process. Everything else went fairly smoothly, albeit it's all an immensely tight fit. In certain spots, we're talking of mere centimeters or even millimeters. Still, even fairly lengthy graphics cards fit without any issues, and as far as the airflow or temperatures are concerned, I have nice things to say. None of the components I used were being suffocated, meaning that you could even go for flagship CPUs and GPUs. You will have to keep an eye out on the power supply though, because 700 watts isn't a whole lot, given the power draw of modern and upcoming hardware. So other than the hassle I went through to fit the liquid cooler into this case, I really can't complain. Actually, I'm quite impressed by the HYTE Revolt 3. All that's being offered here at a price of $130 is nice. $250 if you're going with the pre-installed PSU version, as in my case. So this PC case certainly deserves a big thumbs up from me. It's well worth recommending. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, my friends.